first off, who can relate to liking to have their ducks in a row? Can anybody? You guys like to have your ducks in a row? You know what you're doing, like when you're doing it, right? Anybody relate to having a backup row of ducks? Like in case the first row of ducks fails? Yeah, getting some nods, right? Okay, I'm right there with you, right? So I'll share starting this off. There's so much still for me to learn, all of us to learn, not just people that don't have doctorates, but those that do, right? Like it's just, they're just now in the last 5 to 10 years, maybe at most, I think, really starting to have breakthroughs, right? So I'm just gonna point out that in order to do what we need to do sometimes, all we need is one, maybe 2 ducks. You don't need a lot of ducks. You just start and you build, right, over time. And before you know it, your ducks are all there, they're happily swimming. Or as somebody else put it, sometimes you just need a net and you just need to throw the ducks. Just throw the ducks at the net, right? I thought that was really cute. So, I've met everyone here before, but if you didn't know, I'll share just a couple things about me so kind of know where I'm coming from. I began lifting weights at 19 and have belonged to a gym almost my entire life. So this crunch has been by far one of my favorites. I don't just say that because I work here, it's true. I discovered yoga at the age of 29. There's a studio right up the road from where my husband lived. I moved in, fell in love with yoga. I like to say that I spent my 30s and doing my 20s at this point because I played rugby in college and beyond. I didn't learn how to properly lift. I was just watching other ladies in the gym. I had the girls' days and guys' days at the gym I went to in college to start. And then I didn't know what proper recovery was. I didn't do anything, any yoga or any stretching. So I had very forward posture. My head was shut. My wedding pictures, I'm like, I don't know, like I felt like I probably looked 50 years older than I was because my head was jutting forward so much in my bows. I was going to start instructing yoga. I lived in Toronto. There was no one offering the style I liked, so I began that in 2016. To celebrate turning 40 in 2020, I competed in a figure competition. So this is where I really saw my 2 worlds start to come together, right? Fast forward, I came to Crunch a little over a year ago, summer of 2024, as a long-term sub for yoga. Got invited to do their fitness stuff, and I've been working with clients one-on-one, just like wherever. I'm like, you know what? This is a great place. I want to do this here. So I got my NASM personal training certification, and backing up just a bit, as I was getting ready to turn 45, I started going down the deep dive of like, what do I need? I know stuff's changing, right? Like I've got my things that I was learning are perimenopause symptoms. I'm like, I want my hormonal baseline. Lo and behold, I have no progesterone. I'm kind of weird, I think, because I just found out my doctor's appointment yesterday. I'm through the roof with estrogen. So my doctor now, on my calling, my request, tested my hormones and now has since like up my progesterone twice to make up for the fact that my estrogen's like through the roof and there's no progesterone. So anyway, I've learned so much, just been down this rabbit hole ever since, and I'm the type of person that I like to share what I learn. I want to define what menopause is. It's technically a day in time. It is the 12-month mark from your last period. So there's pre-menopause, right? Like childbearing, we have adolescence, we can have kids. Then we get into this fun phase in the late 30s or so on average. It starts with perimenopause. We start having things like migraines. There's a lot of stuff, like women are more prone to stuff with the brain. Migraines, like I've had a resurgence of like acne, things like that. Our bodies, our hormones are starting to be like, all right, you don't need to produce kids anymore, so we're in perimenopause. Then we get into the menopause transition, right? It's that 12 months, which you don't even know you're fully in it because your periods are out of whack. Mine come earlier, like I can't go hardly 2.5 weeks sometimes between start and start. So there's this transition phase, but once you have your last period that you're ever gonna have, that 12-month period is technically the transition. And then you have the day in menopause, and then postmenopause. Now, I've been interchangeably calling menopause postmenopause until somebody pointed out, like, what if I'm in postmenopause? I'm like, good point. So when I talk about if you hear things coming out of my mouth, that is the guideline, the timeline I am working with when I refer to stuff. So now that we're all on the same page with that. So why lifting heavy becomes important as we age. For one, hormones, estrogen plays a key part in developing muscle and maintaining muscle. We can't rely on our hormones to regulate muscle growth or metabolism, insulin sensitivity, things like that, as the estrogen goes away. And even if you're getting like menopause hormone therapy, also known as hormone replacement therapy, those types of things, that's a synthetic thing that's not going to respond the same way and do the same things. It's going to help offset some symptoms, and I highly promote like exploring a thing that's right for you. I'm in a form of it too right now, getting progesterone. Lots of benefits there to explore. But yeah, so we need to lift heavy. We need to bypass involving the estrogen that's not reliable anymore by involving the central nervous system to tell the muscles to grow by creating a nerve response, which doesn't occur unless you're lifting really heavy weights. So you can be sitting there with 5 pounds till you're blue in the face, and you might get some definition. You're gonna get a little strength, but you're not gonna get the muscle growth, the strength that we need moving on. We want to lift heavy also to require more muscle fibers to be recruited, which leads to better strength gains than any amount of lighter weights will provide. We want to improve our bone mineral density. We'll talk more about that soon. So heavy weights does a better job with that than light weights. So what does it mean to lift heavy? So it's relative, number one. My heavy, you're heavy, you're heavy. Everybody's heavy is going to be different, but the important part is you're putting forth good effort, right? So it's relative, number one. We need to lift heavy enough to weight so that you can't properly lift anymore when you're done with the set. So ideally you're working to a very low rep range, 1 to 5 even. So typically we've been told what, high reps, right? Like 12 to 15 has kind of been my go-to forever, and that's given me great results. 10 to 12 is kind of, I'm considering kind of a nice entry, get the good form. If you're working with a lighter weight in the scheme of things, but it's somewhat heavy to you, you're feeling it, right? You're feeling fairly fatigued at the end of the set. You wait a little bit, or you cycle a circuit or whatever, you go to another set, you lift. Maybe you don't get all those reps that you did the first time because you're fatiguing before that, and you gradually, it's the increasing your weight each and every time a little bit, or reps or whatnot. And you get to the point where you can't increase anymore, and you start noticing that trail. So you want to work till you're exhausted that muscle or muscle groups. So super important to ease into heavy lifting before, if you're not used to it. So first, you must move well, key, right? You want healthy movement patterns, strong connective tissues. Your joints need to be in good, proper working order. Solid range of motion, proper forms, obviously key. So these are all the foundational things. So nobody should just jump into lifting heavy because they're like, oh, I should lift way heavier than I'm doing. All right, so sprint interval training, also known as sit. We all like to sit, right? Sitting's nice. This type of sitting's not so nice. So what is it? So it's a subset of high intensity interval training HIIT. Everybody's heard of that for the most part. So it's short bursts of near maximal effort, like 85% of your maximum heart rate. So an 8 to 9 perceived exertion. You almost want to throw up when you're done if you think about like all the stuff they made you do if you played sports when you're younger. So rough estimate, not the most accurate, but a decent go-to. 220 minus your age is going to be roughly your maximum heart rate. You do need some sort of device, or the chest straps are more accurate than Fitbits. You can obviously take your pulse and do the different things, but having real-time information is kind of nice. So another conversation another day. But anyhow, we want to have the polarizing effort. Super, super hard for a short burst, like 30 seconds. Recover at a lower intensity for a longer duration, like 50% effort, or light walk. You can even sit if you wanted. I wouldn't necessarily so you can lock up, but near minimal effort, right? So you recover. You get to the point where you can talk again. Because when you're doing this super high, if you can talk, you're not working hard enough. Like maybe you can grunt out a yes, like when you're like, are you gonna die? Yes, you know that's how you're feeling. So it's about intensity, not volume. By working extremely hard, your body produces physiological responses that leads to better body composition, reduced cortisol, moving from the sympathetic state to the parasympathetic state, and improved sleep as a result, which you wouldn't like better sleep, right? Especially the state. So I do have a clip I'm going to play because this woman, Dr. Stacey Sims, does a beautiful job explaining how this works.
And what happens with moderate intensity is it increases cortisol. Now, some cortisol is good, but when we're in perimenopause, we are already in a very, what we call sympathetically driven state. So that means we're tired but wired. Our baseline cortisol is elevated. And when our baseline cortisol is elevated, we have a stimulus to put on fat, keep residual inflammation, bloating, can't sleep, can't come down, can't relax. So if we're doing true high intensity interval training and we're polarizing, where we're hitting those intervals, that's, that 80% or more, and then the recovery aspect is 50% or less. So you're really going hard when you're supposed to go hard, going super easy when you're supposed to go easy. You have a subsequent rebound response after exercise, where your body reduces cortisol, increases growth hormone, increases testosterone. And those things help with reparation. They help decrease some of that deep visceral abdominal fat, or that minnow pot that people talk about, getting that belly fat. So there's a feedback mechanism that goes on that your muscles are talking to the fat and saying, hey, you know what? We don't need you. We don't need you, fat, go away. We need to be able to make our muscles really strong. We need to be able to overcome this interval stress. And so it feeds forward to having better body composition, better muscle morphology, meaning your muscle function. And then when we're looking at it from like a sleep point of view, because you've done this really polarized training, then when it's time to go to bed, you have an increase in what we call your parasympathetic drive. And that's what we need to get into a deep sleep. So if we do this maybe twice a week, then we end up with better sleep patterns, better messaging to our body for increasing our lean mass.
Sprint interval training. You do not have to be sprinting. So a sample would be doing any cardio. So you can even incorporate that jump training, which we haven't talked about, that's the next subject. Jump training into it, you can run. I did it on the weekend at the Snowdrop, taking up to, I think I went on a 10, which is a 6-minute mile for 30 seconds. So you want to get your heart rate way up, like as quick as you can, have that 30 seconds, and then take it down for like 4 to 5 minutes. You might do that once and say, I have nothing, I cannot get my heart rate back up. That's how you know like you're done with your sets. Like if one is all you can do, one's better than none. Any cardio is better than none. This is gonna give you the most bang for your cardio buck. So when it comes to like building though, she was saying doing it twice a week, you can build up to like when you can do 2 sessions, give a 4 or 5 minute rest in between. It might take less. The cardiovascular health, if you have more of it, you're going to recover quicker. So it might only take 2 or 3 minutes, for example. But anyway, so you do a second bout of that 30 seconds, then you calm down. Like you can do this up to 4 or 5 times if you're a beast. 3 times is probably a nice goal to shoot for. At least once, if you can get twice in there, just moderate or monitor where you're at and kind of go from there. And 2 to 3 times a week, two is gonna be insane. Even if you can just get 1, like working up to 2 to 3, yeah. So anyhow, so that's that, which I'm all about doing, getting more results in less time. And this is like gonna be the best way you can get the best results for where we're at in our life. Okay, so moving on to jump training now. So this was also a very new thing for me. So the onset of menopause, you can lose 1/3 of your bone mineral density. That was like, so most people reach, and this is also eye-opener, most people reach their peak bone mineral density by 30. That's the most you can have. The teen years are very pivotal. So you are working to preserve or improve up to more or less that level. So if you had really rough bones, like you were breaking stuff like when you're younger, you gotta work that much harder to compensate for the fact that this is, you're just up against a wall, right? So yeah, I saw your face like, wow, yeah. So like, we can't build more than we had by the time we're roughly 30. So just keep that fact in mind. So lifestyle, genetics, diet contribute to what you have to work with, right? Going into it, lifestyle choices. So 3 times per week, 10 minutes, has shown to reverse osteopenia, which is a precursor to osteoporosis, right? So you can be diagnosed with that. Like you're at risk. You're gonna be in that very rough space if you don't do it. You can actually reverse it with jump training, is what one of our colleagues says. Jump training now. 3 times a week, 10 minutes of jump training is what her recommendation is. Any is better than none, once again. So examples, jump rope, jumping on or off a step. So if, jumping down is more intimidating, you can jump up maybe that's more intimidating. If you can do both, and then landing with a slightly stiffer knee. So like that absorbing the shock, that's not going to send up that signal to your bones to produce more bone density. And there's I can't even go into all this stuff, but there's a lot of things. Our bone marrow is housing for a lot of stuff that's tied to this. Our muscles as well. That's another talk. So cannot just rely on running. You needs to be dynamic for maximal effect. So some people, like if you run, right, you're running, you're getting something, but it's too sagittal plane only. You want to get side. You want to send up those signals throughout the bones and
cross country running.
Right, yeah, if you're like bouncing, parkour would be probably really great. Parkour is like bouncing. stuff. It's good. My kids were doing it on the furniture. That wasn't so good. So landing with more of a stiff leg to get the most out of jump training. And best when combined with heavy lifting. So I would lift more. If I was limited with jumping, I would consider looking at putting more emphasis on the heavy lifting, because that helps too. Jump training is probably just going to give you the most bang for your buck. About protein, there's some really funny memes and reels out there. So first, I want to give you a little history. This was mind-blowing. So this was Forever Strong, a different book I listened to. I don't have the physical one. So RDA, we all know what the RDA, right? It's on the labels, recommended daily allowance. Has anyone ever stopped to think about the word allowance? Allowance, this is how much. Here's the history that I'm not sure, but this is my insight. So the history, the USDA, backing up, in 1894, had a set recommendation of 125 grams per day. And there was something I saw about like 115 grams per day for working men. Like that was like early 1900s, they revised or had something out there. This changed in 1941. What was going on then? World War II. So the government, our government, recognized that we had a ration, right? The pantyhose thing, you think about, they drew the lines up because they couldn't even have the nylon to make the pantyhose because it was going to war efforts. Well, they needed to feed the soldiers, and they had rations on stuff or allowances. This is all, and while they didn't necessarily like, I don't know, give money or whatever, like they put recommendations to help with the war, preserve the protein, preserve the nutrition for the soldiers. So, we don't want you to die while we're fighting this war. This is government to general people. But we're going to tell you, so you don't get really, really sick, we're going to put in place, this is our recommendation, which is like half of what I'm about to tell you. That is the bare minimum to not get sick. If that's all you had on a regular basis, what the RDA, and I don't even know what it is, like 65 grams, or there's something per, it's very small, like 0.8 grams per kilogram, which is 2.2 pounds. So they put this out, right? Like, do your part. Don't eat more protein than you need to. So, can't blame them. That seemed great. But 1941, how long ago is that? Like, they're just now starting to be like, maybe we should do something about this. So, I used to be in building trades. I will tell you that, like, building code, everyone's like, oh, it's built to code, it's built to code. It's the RDA allowance. Building code, we used to joke, that's the lowest possible standard that you can legally build a house and get away with it with an inspection, right? All the inspections. So same thing, do you want your house to be the lowest possible standard? No. Okay, so I'm just gonna suggest multiple doctors, Dr. Stacy Sims, I'm pretty sure Vonda Wright's like right around there, but a gram per pound of body weight. It's a very simple way, just like water is like half an ounce per pound of body weight or whatnot is recommended. A gram per pound of lean body weight, lean, so whatever your ideal weight is, like you think about the healthiest place you've been or whatnot, that's where you should be. So the average then, because we're not all gonna make that goal, the average of sometimes we're even gonna go over because we have rock star days or whatever, and then there's gonna be a lot of days where they're not as good, right? So the average though, we're right around where that should be on a regular basis, right? So if we average out, if you go for a much lower goal, you're never gonna hit the true goal of what we need. So there's just like a little history. So why is this a goal? Why do we want a gram? Because it does sound like a lot. I'm not gonna lie. When I did my figure competition, I was at about 142 grams, 145 grams per day. When I was lifting 2 hours a day, like 6 days a week. That's about where I should be now. That would be probably what I would consider my lean body mass. So why is this a goal? With declining or no estrogen, the body is not as effective at creating muscle from protein sources. So what does that mean? We need more protein. But not all protein sources are created equal either. Like if you're plant-based, God bless you, that's a tough thing to go. But plant-based sources of protein are not as bioavailable. They're made from plants. So to each their own, totally, but you're gonna get more out of like a whey protein or eggs, two of the top things, or even I've learned red meat too, more bioavailable than chicken. So Dr. Vonda Wright shares in her book actually.
Once you hit midlife, you need both more protein and more resistance training, which we talked about in Chapter 8, because muscle tissue is constantly breaking down, and it's harder to maintain with age since our muscles become less responsive to the anabolic growth stimulation of both the protein we eat and the exercise we do. For women in midlife, it's all that much more important. As our estrogen levels decline in menopause, we have a harder time synthesizing and maintaining muscle. Estrogen protects against programmed cell death. That means if you want to hang on to the muscle you've got and make some more, you must consume more protein as you reach midlife and beyond. Otherwise, your body will just keep breaking down your muscle to get the amino acids it needs to support your biological functions, and you won't be making enough to replace it. Data from clinical trials, as well as observational studies, show that eating higher levels of protein is associated with a decreased rate of muscle loss and improved physical performance in older adults. And here's a reason to eat more protein that surprised even me. Research has shown forever that when people eat more than they need, they generally gain weight, right? But when researchers gave a group of women and men high, 25%, normal, 15%, or low protein, 5%, diets that contain nearly an extra 1,000 calories a day for 8 weeks, they found something amazing. As expected, all the participants gained weight, but the ones in the low protein group lost muscle and gained fat. The ones eating higher protein also gained lean body mass, like muscle, without even doing resistance training. That's frankly incredible.
So like if nothing else, walk away, please go drink a protein shake or something. And I always say 30 and 30. You want to get 30 grams of protein within 30 minutes of doing your work because your body needs it. Even if you had it before, that was using it to fuel, and it's going to be using for whatever, but you need it right after. Make it there. Do yourself a favor. Keep protein shakes in your car. Buy one here. We have them here. All right, so last, just real quick. So Dr. Peter Attia is someone else that I've really enjoyed listening to. So I don't want to just work out to live long, right? We want to have like good quality of life, right? So Dr. Peter Attia is someone else. Outlive is his book. He does a really good job about talking about what are the things that we want to be able to do when we're in our upper 80s to 90s, right? Up off the floor with your own power using a maximum of one arm for support. Pick up a young child from the floor. Like if you're rocking it that long, awesome. You're going to be able to, you're hopefully maybe going to have great grandkids, who knows what's going to be. But so this whole thing about like the pharmacare, right? You're walking around. So a good test, if you just want to do a quick test, 75% of your body weight. And you can maybe even go lean body weight. That's not what he says, but 75% of your body weight. For me is about 62 pounds in each, so I was going to grab a 50 in each just for visual. But either standing or walking around. You don't have to actually lift them. You don't have to do anything, whatever, but for a minute. At 48 years old or older, and it goes down after like a certain point. But you want to be able to hold this. If you want to be able to open up a jar when you're 85 with your own strength and not have to find somebody, you should be able to do this for a minute. Just watch your form. So the grip strength, that's what we're testing. You're looking for whether that grip strength, because that's a good proxy of overall strength. Because if you're not picking up heavy weights and lifting, and maybe not even weights, but lifting whatever, and doing that, you're not going to be able to hold anything heavy for a very long time.
Last but not least, one of the things that I'm really looking forward to doing is forming a community of women that are in this together to help achieve amazing things in perimenopause and beyond. Let's all get together and support one another, celebrate successes, and just get on it and get some amazing things accomplished.